Hi, I'm Lisa Baker. I'm the practice manager and therapist at Deep Eddy Psychotherapy, and I'm talking with Owen O'Brien today, who's a licensed clinical social worker and our clinical director. And very unfortunately, Owen was exposed to and has gone through the entire process of being positive with COVID, but she has been kind enough to take some time today to answer some of just kind of general questions about what her experience was like, some of what how she managed, and just to give some tips and feedback and a little bit of reassurance to those that are currently concerned about being exposed. So thanks for doing this. I know it's on everybody's minds and it's a lot to talk about, but I'm glad you're feeling better, and wanting to know a little bit of just what your experience was. How did you first start to become suspicious that you were sick? Kind of how did your symptoms progress over time?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do this. It's always easy to talk to Lisa. Um, so it actually started with my husband that he was just having this dry cough and was just short of breath, and he wasn't complaining because he never complains. And it just started to get worse and worse. And COVID, this was like a month ago or more. And so COVID wasn't that big yet, like in the US. And so we weren't really thinking much of it, but he's so informed about the pandemic that he pretty quickly started quarantining, and I did as well at home. And I'd had a sore throat and some GI symptoms and a headache for about 5 days. But I just thought it was allergies or I'd eaten something. I didn't think anything of it. My husband was the one who was sick. Then the fatigue just progressed and got worse each day. I was able to work, but had to just like sit down the whole time, going from an active person who exercises all the time, always wants to go on walks and adventures, to like just a slug. Just couldn't really do much. Um, and it was bizarre fatigue for me. I'm used to being tired, but not leveled
Yeah.
by my fatigue, and just feeling like I can't do anything but watch a TV show or read a book, if that.
And not to be re-energized by some of your normal activities, like a more consistent, pervasive fatigue.
Yes, exactly. It was like, oh, I try to go for a walk, and instead of energizing me, just a very short walk, it would just drain me. And I'd have to like lie in bed for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I knew something was up. My husband's symptoms were getting increasingly worse. He was just like really short of breath, to the point that his blood oxygen levels were getting dangerously low. We were worried and monitoring him to see if he had to go to the hospital.
Mm.
And then with me, I was like, oh, my body's just, I'm tired because I'm fighting it off. Like I don't have it. I woke up in the middle of the night coughing
Mm.
with fever and with this lung pain and shortness of breath. It felt like I was breathing in air on a really cold run, and it was just burning my lungs. And I know in that moment I started to tear up because I just felt so terrible. And all of a sudden I was afraid I was going to die.
Yeah.
Um, so that vulnerable moment, no defenses up. I was just a sleeping little child kind of in that moment. So I was really scared.
Mhm.
Um, and that's another part of it. When I started to get in that place of fear, sort of reached over for support from my husband. I think social support, whether virtually or if you have someone in the home in person, is so important through this. He comforted me. I'd comfort him when he was having really bad lapses. We'd be able to care for each other because when one was worse, the other one seemed a little bit better. There weren't enough tests in Travis County at the time, so neither of us were able to get our hands on a test during the diagnostic window. But the teledocs I saw multiple, and we had a good ER doctor friend who was kind of helping monitor us too. I was really grateful for that. They were all like, yeah, this looks like COVID. This looks exactly like the Austin strain of COVID. We're seeing GI symptoms. We're seeing headaches. And that surprised me because I didn't even consider that had been part of my symptomology. And apparently I'd been having COVID a week before I even thought I had COVID. So that's one of the scary things about this is you could think you have allergies or a light little headache. And that's the importance of social distancing is that could be the beginning of COVID. You might almost have no idea. You feel mostly like your normal self. I was rock climbing that week. I was fine, I thought.
Yeah, which is hard, especially for people that are already used to experiencing issues with cedar, with other regular allergies, that it's hard to, sounds like it's, I mean, just really difficult to distinguish what were problematic symptoms versus things that were more transient or that you're more used to at this time of year.
Precisely. I mean, if I thought it was allergies at first, I could see people thinking, oh, this is a cold, or I'm just tired. Maybe it's hormonal. Like there are so many things it could be in those first stages. Fatigue is such a generic symptom that maybe you're stressed. So again, I think that's the importance of social distancing for those early stages when you're most symptomatic, or most not symptomatic, least symptomatic and most contagious. That's the most likely time that you have no idea that you have COVID and that you could be spreading it around to others, including those who are older or immunocompromised. And I am grateful that my husband knew more about it early on, so we were able to quarantine about a week and a half before everyone else started quarantining, to minimize the spread.
Yeah. This is kind of a unique opportunity to talk to somebody who's a therapist that has gone through this, just because you're so aware of your emotions and so active in kind of just maintaining your own connection to mental health and how you feel and how your physical health and other environmental things affect you. But I'm curious if you can share a little bit of just kind of like, how you, it sounds like some support from your husband, kind of just how you managed like swells in either fear, what other unexpected emotions came up for you, especially as someone who's typically so active, to all of a sudden be out of commission in certain ways, of sort of just, what you noticed emotionally going through that period of a couple weeks where things were so different.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, as you know me well, Lisa, and exercise and rock climbing or yoga, running, whatever, some of my biggest usual coping skills or biggest forms of self-care. And that was just stripped away from me abruptly. So I had to shift. Definitely the social support, low-key meditations, talking to lots of friends when I had the energy, of course. I remember so many times I would just be lying in bed and I'd have the laptop on my belly and I would just be not talking much, but participating in a Zoom happy hour. I'm a very social person, so that was really nourishing to connect with people I loved. Reality checking, that night that I was scared I was going to die, well, we had an oximeter, so just put the oximeter on my little finger. It wasn't the usual 100 it is, but it was lower, but it was reality checking. I wasn't in the danger zone. So I was able to reality check with stuff like that. Although I was short of breath, I wasn't actually near death. That reality checking was really helpful. And then just connecting to gratitude. I was like, well, we never know when we're going to die. I'm probably not going to die. And I really want to get better to be back to my friends, my clients, and my job. I was so grateful for my job at that point because I was deprived of being able to do it. So I was like, oh, my clients, I miss them. My friends, I miss them. So it really helped me tap into that. And I don't know, that was nourishing just to think of all the things I love so much in my life, how much I appreciate getting to move my body, what a privilege that is. And so I had lots of time to think and just marinate on it. And one helpful thing about COVID is I was so incredibly tired. I was so fatigued that it made me, it was almost anesthetizing. It made me not care as much. So that's not much of a coping skill, but it was helpful of like, instead of this huge pain of deprivation around exercise, I was just too tired to exercise. So it actually felt really right to rest. And it felt okay to watch Netflix. A final thing is self-compassion is like, if you're sick, you just can't do your normal routine. You can't be your normal self. You might get scared. You might act a little differently, and just, it's a time of great suffering and great fear for you, to just treating yourself with a lot of kindness and compassion. That's going to both feel a lot better for your heart, and it's also going to help your immune system. Just holding yourself with kindness. Like, yeah, it's okay you're not working right now. It's okay you're not taking walks. Like, you really need to rest. My final pro tip for health is drink a lot of water if you have it. That seemed to help. It's anecdotal, but oh my gosh, like that was the only thing. Nothing worked for the headache. I had a 3-week headache and it turned into migraines at times. It's awful. So drinking a lot of water often helped me stay ahead of the pain. Like way double the amount I usually do. And no NSAIDs, no ibuprofen. If you take anything, take Tylenol.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting to hear. I mean, just like how much you had to lean into non-typical things for yourself, of like really giving permission to be at rest and fighting, sounds like, some of the either anxiety or the guilt, or some of the other typical
Yeah.
emotions that you, and stories you have about what it means to take a day
Productivity.
off, or to sleep all day. I know that's something I've talked through with some people, of just how familiar those brain states are. If you've been depressed, or if you're used to being kind of paralyzed with anxiety, it's really activating to be in a resting state, or to allow
Mhm.
yourself the time to watch TV all day, or to stay in bed if that feels like it mirrors your depressive symptoms, or a time in your life when you weren't able to do anything else. I mean, it's just, yeah, that self-compassion piece you're talking about is really important, that it's okay, it's necessary, it's in fact the best thing you can do for yourself, is to rest, even when you have some stories or experiences with how hard or difficult or dangerous it's been to do that in the past.
That's a beautiful point. And if you're having kind of an emotional flashback around having to rest or being sick, there are a lot of people out here with medical traumas who are very afraid of COVID and could potentially get COVID. Just making discernments between then and now. I associate resting or watching Netflix, or even reading, sometimes with periods of procrastination in my life when I dealt with that a lot. And so the guilt was almost reflexive, and I would have to discern, like, you are not procrastinating. You are actually doing the most productive thing right now, which is to rest. So the same goes to, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to die because, when I was younger, I had cancer, and this feels so similar. And just remembering, okay, this is COVID, not cancer. What are the differences? What are the real health numbers you have? What's your fever at?
Mm-hmm.
How's your blood oxygen level? How is your breath? Just reality checking those things to kind of bring yourself down, staying calm. It's natural to be scared, but grounding yourself and staying calm really helps both your health and your psychology during this time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I really appreciate you taking some time to share this, and it's a little bit exposing and hard to talk about your own personal experience in some of this way, but it does a lot for people to be able to just have some reality experience of what it was like, what to expect. I guess if there's any other just like ideas, or find kind of like final parting thoughts to leave people with, of how to just manage the uncertainty that's right now, or some of the anxieties or fears about the unknown, and some of just the kind of societal stress that's going on.
Absolutely. I guess my parting thought is, I'm a big fan of the book A Man's Search for Meaning. And I find meaning to be very powerful, whether you're religious or spiritual, or you love nature, you just love love and love relationships. So for me, I've tried to make meaning and opportunity out of this. Of course, grieving is necessary because there is a lot to grieve. There's a lot of loss in this time. But also on this other hand, okay, how can I make meaning out of this time? I'm connecting to friends that we didn't often have time to connect with in the past. I'm looking into ways I can help other people with COVID, helping local businesses by eating takeout, donating some money. And if I can get an antibody test, I could be a blood plasma donor, and they're looking into whether that'd be helpful. And although I passed out last time I gave blood, that would still be very meaningful to me. God, if I could somehow convey immunity to somebody else, I mean, that would make the suffering have this great meaning. Or if I find out more that, oh, I'm certainly immune, then I could go around and help other people drop off groceries and be the one to go to grocery stores for my more vulnerable friends and family members. So that's just really been nurturing and soothing. What meaning, even if you don't get infected with it, you're isolated, and it is this sort of global trauma. So what meaning can you make of it in your own life? How can you transcend some of the pain and the suffering with connection, with meaning?
Yeah. And as you do for your like giving support to other people who are trying to navigate through that, it's hard to be dropped all of a sudden into a brand new reality that looks very different, where your priorities are shifting, your values are coming into conflict. That is a really powerful time for people to be exploring some of those things and trying to take something from this, of what does it mean about my life, and what do I want for the future after this to look like, and in ways to be keeping forward focus on what life will be like after, how to build for a future instead of staying stuck in some of the just day-to-day anxieties of changing information and the uncertainties. That's that powerful connecting piece too, bigger than us, bigger than this moment, but potentially needing some support from somebody else to just be able to work on those things and talk through those very complicated higher order emotional pieces.
Absolutely. One of my biggest epiphanies during this is the feelings of COVID and the pandemic, whether you had it or not, are so incredibly big. There's a fear of death. There's a fear of how long this will last. How much will our world and our life and our economy be changed? People losing their jobs. There is so much happening. The feelings are massive. So my recommendation would be, with those bigger feelings, to endeavor to not feel them alone, whether you're reaching out to a therapist, whether you're part of a support or a therapy group, whether you're connecting to friends or family members, whether you're calling on an internalized resource. Maybe your grandmother's dead, but she was the most nurturing person in the world, and you're holding her in your heart with you as you go through this. Mm-hmm. Don't go through it alone. Mm-hmm. It's too big. We need people through this time, even if we can't physically be with them.
Yeah, or our pets too.
I know, that's what I was thinking. I was putting off the puppy.
Yeah. That all the different forms of support, and it looks in any number of different ways. But yeah, that it's big and scary, and there's a lot to take in. But that it's also really good to see, a positive story of somebody who's experienced it, who had very moderate to, if not severe, symptoms, but that you were able to take care of yourself, that you're fortunate to have some of those supports and to be on the other side of it feeling much better. So we're certainly, I know for myself and everyone, we're very grateful for that, and I'm really thankful for you taking the time to just share some of your thoughts and wisdom with people. It's meaningful, and just giving some better idea of either what to expect or helping to demystify some of it. So
absolutely. And for reassurance, I know this has been helpful to hear for some. I'm 100% better. My husband's 100% better. And some of the other people I've known who've been sick have recovered as well. And so just really, if you get it, just knowing recovery is really possible. Of course, you're on the edge of the unknown, but I know that's reassured the hearts of many, because this is a scary virus. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa.
Yes. Well, take care, and we will see you soon.
Bye.